Hello, everybody, and we are live. Welcome. This is episode 3 of the service-based automation in JSM of our webinar series. I am Paul Renshaw, CRO here at Clearvision. And Gary, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Blower. I'm the IT Service Management Practice Lead for Clearvision.
Wonderful. So before we begin, Gary and I have just returned from Service Management World in Orlando. This is the second biggest service management event in the US. I thought I'd just share some of the things that we noticed there. So what struck me, a couple of things really, was the number of ServiceNow customers that spoke to us who actually had ServiceNow embedded within their business, which we definitely understand. It's a very dominant product, but how these customers themselves had identified Jira Service Management could fill gaps that ServiceNow wasn't providing. I wonder, Gary, if you could just comment on that. Obviously, you were speaking to customers at length as well.
Yes, thanks, Paul. Yes, in fact, I think I did a record number of demos, but yeah, it was interesting in that obviously it's a very large event, a lot of very large customers in the US there, and a lot of them, as you said, were currently using ServiceNow. But interestingly, they were mainly focusing on the ServiceNow on obviously IT service management and HR, but they had other service desk needs within their business. Maybe it was for like a facilities team or a legal team or a marketing team or customer support facing out to, external customers or external suppliers. And one of the things they were interested in, it was whether they could use Jira to do that for them as well, because they already had Jira. And so, I basically was showing them that, Jira is really well positioned to provide what's called an enterprise service management, which is basically service desks for every other team within your business. If you're replacing email and spreadsheets with a mechanism for your customers to raise tickets and for you to track them to closure, it's ideal for that. And you can spin up service desks for marketing teams or for customer support in a matter of minutes, really. It's much faster.
Yeah, it was a real takeaway, that, and I think the phrase we started to hear a lot was filling the gaps, and I like that. So yeah, it's a really interesting takeaway for me. Something else that I noticed as well, so we spoke to a lot of customers who already had a service management solution in place, but they came over because they saw the logo, they saw Jira, and oh, we've got Jira, and they came over. And what did you notice about that category of customer who kind of came to us going, oh, we use Atlassian?
Well, twofold really. One, some of them didn't even know that Jira had service management capabilities or the Jira Service Management client within it. And others may have seen Jira Service Desk many years ago. I had 2 or 3 who said, oh yeah, I've not seen this for 3 years. And then when I showed them, they were blown away by how different it was. Because of course, Jira Service Desk was quite simplistic. It was around sort of 3 or 4 years ago. And in the last 2.5, 3 years, Atlassian have really invested heavily in terms of expanding the capabilities of Jira in terms of providing a service management tool, particularly around things like operational management with Opsgenie and configuration management and asset management with the acquisition of Insight, which is now called Assets, and a load of other stuff as well, which has been added, like forms and automation and all these other things. And so really, when they saw it today, they were quite blown away by how capable it was. And in fact, for some of the customers we spoke to, it was actually better than their in-place ITSM solution that they currently had. And so their takeaway from it was, we need to maybe look at this again.
Yeah, and on that note, so that was the Orlando event. There's an event taking place in London on December the 8th at Indigo. It's an official Atlassian event called High Velocity IT. It's focused on ITSM and service management. It's free to attend to any European people watching. December the 8th. It's in London. It's at the Indigo, which is at the Big O2. And if you yourself are in that same position, I would really encourage you to come along and get a bit of a feel for it. Apparently, will.i.am is also going to be performing. So yeah, there you go. Something to do in the evening. Okay, right. I want to jump into the webinar. What we're going to do is let me just quickly go over. So this is episode 3. Episode 1 was all about high velocity service management at the touch of a button. That's available on demand. In that episode, we shared top tips on getting the most value from pre-built templates in JSM, so you can start serving customers quickly. That was things like service management templates, turning features on and off, advanced forms, customer permissions and notifications, and working with other Jira teams. So if that's of interest, as an episode 1 for that. Episode 2 was High Velocity IT and Chaos Monkeys, my favorite named webinar of the year. So in that episode, we looked at how the industry is fundamentally changing its approach to IT operations and how JSM can help support this in digital transformation terms. We covered fast failure and chaos engineering. We covered ITSM and high velocity IT and DevOps. And we also discussed supporting high velocity IT with Jira Service Management. Now, what that leads us on to is episode 3. So this is service-based automation in JSM. Slightly more technical for our audience today. So service-based incident and change management are core features of Jira Service Management. We're going to look at how you can build powerful automation and alerting, so very specifically. We're going to cover what are services in Jira, so definition of that, service-based alerts and incident routing. We're going to cover service-based approvals, managing service assets, and then using services in powerful automation rules, all within Jira Service Management. So to get us going, I've got a few questions for Gary. So to begin with, what are services in Jira? If you could run through that for us, Joe.
Yeah, sure. So the term service actually is probably the one that causes the most confusion for my customers actually. So services in Jira Service Management are a generic concept. They can be anything you like. Within Jira, you have this concept of a service registry, and I'll put up a slide in a moment just to kind of illustrate the point. But essentially, services can be anything within your business that you're providing a service on. So it could be things like payment systems, servers, teams of people like a legal team or an HR team, could be your website, could be your billing system, could be products that you provide to customers, could be application stacks. It's left generic because every business is different, and also you may not be using your service desk for purely IT. So it's kept generic enough that it could apply to any circumstance where you as a business are providing a service. Another way to think about it is if you've got customers who are reporting problems or incidents, these are the services to which they would report them against. So if I'm a customer and I have a problem, I'm trying to make payments on your website and the payment system's not working, maybe I report it through can I get some help? And I report there's a problem. That gets logged as an incident. The service that's identified is that billing system, because I've said, oh, I can't do anything with your billing system. And so that's the service that's impacted. So yeah.
I muted myself, so I hope that makes sense for everybody out there. So why do we need to define services? If we start there, please, Gary.
Right, for this, I'm actually going to share an image with you. So this is from some of Atlassian's literature. So I'm just going to share this screen. Hopefully everyone can see it. What this does is it shows how the different parts of Jira Service Management fit together. And what I wanted to focus on really is the blue box in the middle, which is Jira Service Management. And around it, you can see all the other Atlassian products, which can be used as part of your service management tool chain. But you'll notice within service management, when we're dealing with major incidents or when we're dealing with change requests, we tend to refer or reference the asset, the configuration item, or the service that is impacted by that change or that incident. So like I said before, say there's a problem and you want to report it, there's a problem with your billing system or a problem with a website, you report it, you're going to identify that website is the actual area of your service or your services that's actually having the problem. And what you'll notice here from this diagram is that the list of services is part of what we call the configuration management database, or CMDB, but in Jira it's separated. So the service registry is a kind of separate layer within that configuration management database. There's a number of reasons for this, but the main one is that it allows automation to occur between Jira and the other products within the Atlassian toolset. So by defining these services, for example, let's say you had a status page for your billing system, then when an incident is raised against that billing service, then that incident can instantly update the status page to say the billing system is currently out of action. And it's because of that service registry that we're able to achieve that automation. So services are kind of key to the way in which that automation actually works within Jira. And it's really important for some of those high velocity IT concepts we talked about in the last episode, particularly incident management and incident swarming. The whole idea really is that you're trying to cut down the lead time between someone discovering something's wrong and your team actually being able to restore it. High velocity IT is all about reducing, time to market, time to customer, reducing delay. And having this level of automation means that, as I said earlier, if I raise a ticket and say, can't access your billing system, then through services, Jira is able to automatically notify the correct people, identify which parts of the system are currently under impact. That can be used to prevent other tickets being raised or from duplicate incidents being raised. If you're practicing incident swarming, which is this idea that you get all your very technical people kind of swarming on a major incident really quickly, you can build that swarm very effectively and automatically, again, using these services, because as soon as that service is impacted, it will invite responders in to look at it. And those responders could come from your database team, your web services team, your networking team. They could all get involved all at once. And the same principle applies to change management. So if you're looking to manage changes in a holistic way, where you've got change approvals based again on your services, again, using that service layer, those approvals can be automatically sent out for high-risk changes so that your key stakeholders can approve them as soon as they're raised. So it really is essential to the way in which Jira automates and shifts left the ability to manage incidents and change requests.
And all that functionality you described is out of the box within Jira Service Management.
It's all out of the box at all tiers as well. So even on a standard version of JSM, you get that. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Can we only track the business services in the way you've described?
So in the vanilla Jira Service Management Standard Edition, then yes, you use services to do that. You can augment it by using things called components as well if you want to add more stuff in. The great thing is with Jira Service Management Premium, you also get that full configuration management database. So as well as that top layer of services, you can then start to build out and elaborate the rest of your configuration. So your infrastructure, your servers, your software, your key assets really that contributes to the overall picture of the IT service or service that you provide. Now, you do need to have the premium or enterprise subscription to get access to that. But the beauty of it is that anything you define within the configuration management database is linked back to the original service. So again, taking that example, if I had a billing service, I could break that billing service down into its servers, its database, its software, its sibling services, its dependencies, its approvers, and its incident responders, all within the asset and configuration management database itself.
Great. Can this service registry you've just described be used for just normal BAU systems, or can it be used for projects as well?
It can be used for pretty much anything. Again, it's kept generic, this word service, which can be confusing for some teams, particularly if they're very technical. We think of things like microservices, things like that. They're not the same thing. So services just mean any business service that could be impacted by an incident or a change. If your services are something like, you're taking bookings for an event space, or if you're taking, maybe you're taking bookings for, marketing campaigns, you're managing marketing campaigns throughout your business, the services can be defined at that level as well. They can represent different products, different teams, or different functions within your business if you want them to. They can be anything.
And is it a case of you can identify maybe areas of your business where that's the most challenges are there today, solve it in the way you've described, and then begin to go around the business as you get more comfortable, i.e. you don't need to eat all of it straight away, because
definitely not.
It's quite big. Yeah,
definitely not. And it's very true. When we start looking at services, normally I would say to one of my customers to just concentrate on your 2 or 3 main business services that you currently provide, the main products that you provide, or the main services you provide either within your business or externally. Start with those, because then you can start to then build more as time goes on. Those will be your key areas of focus initially. They're probably your high risk parts of your business, the bits that if there's an impact to it, it's going to have the most effect on you. But once you've done that and you understand how this all works, you can then start to expand it to other parts of the business as well.
Great. And then this feature specifically, is it widely used within our customers today? Have you got some examples of that?
I think pretty much certainly every implementation we do, we always sit down with the customer to start with to define what their high level services will be to start with. So whether that's building a service desk for an IT service desk or building a service desk for a property management company, we'll start with those initial services. We'll say, okay, these are the 4 or 5 we've identified, and we'll define those up front. And that way, if problems are raised against that service, your responders will be notified automatically.
Great. And then is this approach standard within the service management industry? I'm thinking Zendesk, ServiceNow, the various competitors.
It's standard as an approach. It's not necessarily defined. So one of the differences with Atlassian is they've actually defined this service registry layer explicitly and sort of said, look, this is something you need to set up when you set up your service desk. With other tools, it's good practice and quite common practice to do this, but you tend to build it within the configuration management database. So within ServiceNow, within Zendesk or something like that, within the configuration management database, you'll define your business services and your products as configuration records, which are then linked to infrastructure and everything else. But it's more of a best practice that you adopt rather than something that's built into the tool. Whereas with Atlassian, they've gone ahead and made this a very explicit layer that's built into the tool.
Okay. Interesting. And I suppose that's one of the benefits of building a newer service management tool in the last few years rather than having a legacy platform.
Yep.
Right. So what changes in the future are coming within Jira Service Management?
So there are some that they are in barcode, so I can't go into a lot of detail because there is an event which we'll talk about in a moment.
Yeah.
But some of the things you can expect to see are much closer integration between that operational layer I mentioned earlier and your ticketing within Jira. So, and in fact, around some of the things we've been talking about here, so the services themselves being far more tightly integrated into how everything works and giving further opportunities to actually automate your service management sort of life cycles within the tool using services as the core of it.
Great. Cheers, Gary. And I think for anyone watching this on repeat, the offer from Clearvision, who you probably be aware of now as part of the FE Code group, we are very customer facing. You can hear the experience Gary has whenever we go travel around the world to various events. Gary often gets deep in conversation with people from your industry, talking about the newer ways or what's best. So I really encourage you to kind of come with your views that you have on the way this should be done and see if they fit into the tool. We know the tooling's secondary to the way you run your business, but how can it help you deliver your goals within the business? So I'd really challenge you to do that. Now, we have referenced it already, but that's what that London event's about. So in terms of the London event, date wise, London, December the 8th at the big O2 in London. It's at Indigo, which is a smaller venue within the O2. It will also be available virtually the week after, which is December the 13th. So definitely, if you're certainly UK based or European, come to that. So thank you, Gary. Very informative as always. Let me go to the Q&A. A second. Right, here we go. Some here, just give me a second. So, right, how can other teams in your business, the HR, legal, facilities, etc., utilize automation in their services?
The automation is predominantly focused around incidents and changes. So if you think about HR and legal teams, a good example of this actually is things like security incidents. So for example, if you've got a legal team and there has been some kind of security breach or some kind of issue that the legal team need to be aware of and potentially investigate and handle, then you could set up a mechanism whereby that ticket could be raised on the legal service desk. The service within the legal service desk would be something like security incident or security breach. And then that would then potentially notify members of that legal team, potentially even out of hours if it was something that critical. So you can set all that up out of the box with the legal team and have like an emergency on-call rota for anything that needs urgent legal advice.
Great, thank you. That's a good example. We do have a couple more as well. Are there any differences in the automation you've described today when it comes to cloud and the on-prem versions of Jira Service Management?
Oh yeah, that is a good question. So you can do some of it. So the integration is not as close or tightly coupled as it is on cloud. So you have to purchase Opsgenie separately from Jira Service Management to start with. And then once you've got the two connected, you can define within Opsgenie these same services. They're not defined within Jira, they're actually defined within Opsgenie itself. Whereas on the cloud, they're actually defined in Jira, Opsgenie, and the CMDB. They're all kind of all over the place, so that everything's interconnected. But on premise, you can only really do it in Opsgenie, but you can still drive some of the behavior around incident management. You can't around change management, unfortunately, and you would have to use automation for Jira or some kind of scripting to do something similar.
Okay, so you can still get to the similar place, but just slightly different tool setup.
Yeah, it's more of a manual process. Yeah.
Okay, and here's the final one. It's a good question. So is it easy to set up the service registry and services? The reason I think that's a good question is this is, I think, the most complex in terms of detail that we've gone into the webinar series so far. And quite frankly, it can sound quite complex. I wonder if you could just give some, i.e., is it easy? How long does it normally take, etc.?
Yeah. So in terms of technical complexity, it is super duper easy. If you can make a list of 5 things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you literally just click a create button and type the names in. And that's it.
Right.
It's as easy as creating a backlog, basically, if you're used to doing those in Jira. The complexity and the difficulty actually comes in you deciding what those services are. And like I said, the best way to think about them is a service is something that's impacted by an incident or a change as a business. So not necessarily at a technical level, but as a business. Like I said, if I sold t-shirts online and my billing system went down and I wasn't able to, or my payment system went down and I couldn't process payments to sell my t-shirts, that would be quite critical for my business. So the payment system for my t-shirts would probably be a service. And what we tend to do with our customers is first sit down and say, okay, what are the high level business services? Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's create them. Actually creating them takes seconds and it's very easy.
Right. And I think that's where we were going before, where it's start with the critical problems to solve that you're owning today. And then your kind of hopes and dreams is on another list, isn't it? Because when you're talking, I can think of so many things that I'd love to automate, even in our business, so I'm sure people listening are thinking the same, but focus on those business areas first and then move on to there. Right. I think that is it for questions. Yes, it is. Cool. So that is it. That's the 3 episodes of this webinar series. I hope you've enjoyed them. Thank you very much for Gary and your superb knowledge. If you do want to spend any time with Gary, he's available to speak to customers. Like I say, really knows his onions. So let's take advantage of that. See how this could potentially benefit your business. We hope to see you very soon. And that's us signing off. So thank you very much.